the storm from the east. He was born in the windswept grasslands of Mongolia, a child with no name, no clan, and no future. He watched his father die, his family starve, his tribe abandon him. But what rose from that emptiness was not just a man. It was a storm, a force of nature that would tear across the known world, from the sands of Arabia to the gates of Vienna, from the Great Wall of China to the heart of Persia. He united warring tribes with blood and fire. He built an empire greater than Alexander, mightier than Rome. His name would echo in terror across continents. Genghis Khan, to some, a barbaric warlord, to others, a genius of strategy, law, and leadership, to all, an unstoppable legend. He began as Temujin. He became Khan of Khans, and in just one generation, he changed the world forever. Early life, born into chaos. Before he became Genghis Khan, he was Temujin, a boy born into a world that wanted him dead. He wasn't born in a palace or beneath a flag. He was born in the Mongolian steppe around 1162, in a world of shifting tribes, blood feuds, and survival by the blade. A place where strength was law and weakness meant death. Temujin's father, Yasuge, was a tribal chief, a warrior who dreamed of greatness for his son. When Temujin was just 9, his father arranged a marriage to unite two clans. But while returning from that journey, Yasuge was poisoned by rival enemies. And with that, the boy's future collapsed. The tribe abandoned the family. Temujin, his mother Holland, and his siblings were cast out into the wilderness, left to starve. No food, no protection, no allies. Just bitter wind, frozen earth, and the cold eyes of those who no longer owed them loyalty. Temujin learned to hunt rats, gather roots, and fight his own brothers for scraps. He was not a prince. He was not chosen. He was feral, hardened, alone, and then betrayed. As a teenager, Temujin was captured and enslaved by a rival tribe, bound in a wooden collar like an animal. Most boys would have died in chains. Temujin escaped, and with that escape, a spark lit inside him, a fire that would never go out. Temujin wasn't born a conqueror. He was born a nobody in the harshest environment on earth. But he learned early that trust was dangerous, that fear was useful, and that survival was earned with blood. He watched wolves. He studied leaders. He remembered every name that had ever turned their back on him, and deep in his mind, a single idea began to take root. What if the tribes were united under one law, one voice, one sword? He was no longer just a boy fighting to live. He was becoming something far greater. A storm was forming. Temujin rises a clanless warrior. He had no army, no name to protect him, no tribe that would claim him. Temujin, the boy who survived wolves and slavery, now faced a world that had already tried to bury him. But the world made one fatal mistake. It let him live. In the chaos of the Mongolian steppe, clans warred endlessly for grazing land. Horses, salt, honor, loyalties shifted like sand. Alliances were sealed in blood and broken just as fast. Temujin had no great lineage, but he had something better, a reason to fight. He began gathering followers, not through birthright, but through trust. He rewarded loyalty. He punished betrayal. And unlike other warlords, he didn't care who your father was. He raised up slaves. He honored courage. He shattered the old hierarchy of tribal nobility and built a new one from scratch. Men came to him from all corners of the steppe, outcasts, broken warriors, ambitious young riders, hungry for more. Together, they were not just a war band, they were something more dangerous. They were a vision, Uju faced his greatest test in battle against his blood brother Tomoyasu, Jamuka. Jamuka, favored by Mongol clans, declared himself Khan of all Mongols. Khan, but Temujin fought not for aristocrats. He fought for the forgotten, and they followed him. The two armies clashed in brutal open-steppe warfare. King Uju lost the first time, betrayed, outnumbered, hunted, but he did not die. He did not vanish. He disappeared into the hills, rebuilt in silence, and returned even stronger. And when they met again, he crushed Jamuka. This time, it was Temujin who called Khan, not just by his tribe, but by a growing coalition of warriors across the steppe. He had no royal blood. He had no ancestral clan. But now, he had something far more powerful. Loyalty earned, fear respected, and a destiny unfolding. Temujin was no longer the hungry boy on the riverbank, no longer the slave in a wooden collar, no longer just a survivor. He was becoming the storm. The unification of the Mongols. By 1206, the winds of the steppe no longer howled with tribal wars. They carried a single name, whispered in fear and respect, Temujin. But now, he would cast that name aside for something greater. Genghis Khan, universal ruler, crowned on the banks of the Aenon River in a sacred ceremony of the Mongol people, Temujin became the supreme leader of all Mongols. For centuries, the Mongol tribes had been scattered, broken by blood feuds, rival chiefs, and ancient grudges. But Genghis Khan did what no one else dared. He unified them, all of them, and he didn't just unite them by force. He rewrote their future. Genghis Khan's revolution. He abolished inherited nobility. He promoted based on merit and loyalty. He created a system of discipline, law, and reward. His warriors were no longer just raiders. They were soldiers of an empire. He organized his army into units of 10, 100, 1,000, mixing tribes together to erase old rivalries. He created a powerful messenger system, the Yam, that could relay orders across hundreds of miles in a single day. He outlawed kidnapping women, enforced laws against theft and betrayal, and he demanded that every Mongol swear loyalty to the empire, not to their clan, but to him. This wasn't just conquest. This was transformation, from tribes to a nation, from raiders to a civilization of war, from chaos to order, Genghis Khan's order. But unity had a price. Rivals were crushed. His entire clans were destroyed if they opposed him. The punishment for betrayal was death, not just of the man, but of his bloodline. This was not a democracy. It was a forge, and every man in it was steel or ash. For the first time in history, the Mongol people stood as one, bound not by blood, but by purpose. As Genghis Khan turned his gaze outward. Two kingdoms, empires, and cities that had no idea what was coming. The Mongol war machine, conquest, begins. Once the tribes were united, the empire needed to move, and when it moved, did not stop. The world was about to meet a new kind of army. Not soldiers, not knights, not warriors, weapons, on horseback. The Mongol army was unlike anything the world had seen. Every man a rider, every rider a bowman, every bowman trained from childhood to ride, shoot, kill, and vanish. They traveled light, fast, and far. No roads, no wagons. Each warrior carried dried meat, fermented milk, and a bow that could pierce armor at 300 yards, even while galloping. They lived in the saddle. They slept in the saddle, and they were coming. The art of fear. The Mongols didn't just win battles. They broke civilizations. They surrounded cities with silence, then opened the sky with fire, arrows, and thunder. But town surrendered. Genghis often spared it. If it resisted, he erased it, burned it to the ground, salted the earth, executed leaders. let the survivors run, so others would hear the screams. Terror was part of the strategy. The world thought them savages, but it was a myth. One, the Mongols were happy to let spread. The machine itself, they moved in perfect formations, used decoys, feints, and false retreats to lure enemies into traps. It's communicated with smoke signals, flags, and a vast relay network that kept Genghis informed in near real time. Each warrior carried multiple horses, rotating them to never tire. If wounded, they drank blood from their horses' veins and rode on. They fought on snow, sand, mountain, river, and city wall. The elements were not obstacles, they were terrain advantages. Conquest begins in a few short years. Genghis Khan invaded the Western Shire, crushed the Jin dynasty, and stormed through Central Asia like a living plague. Cities like Bhopal, Samarkand, and Nishaphar fell in flames. He destroyed armies 5 times his size, not through strength, but through precision, psychology, and unyielding will. This wasn't conquest, it was recalibration. The known world had a new center, and at its core, the war machine is the man in the black horse, Genghis Khan. Cities that burned, the fall of empires. They called them cities of stone, protected by walls too high for invaders, armies too vast to fear desert tribes. But they had never faced what was coming. Not a siege, not a war, not a man. They faced obliteration. King Genghis Khan sent a caravan to the Khwarezmian Empire, offering trade. The Shah murdered the envoys. Genghis replied with the only language he knew, vengeance. And then the cities began to burn. Bukhara, a shining jewel of Islamic learning and architecture, its walls tall, its mosques filled with scholars, its people confident behind fortress gates. The Mongols breached it in days. Genghis stood in the mosque, looking down at the kneeling crowd, and said, "I am the punishment of God. If you had not committed great sins, God would not have sent a punishment like me." Samarkand, massive city, home to 100,000. The Shah's elite army waited and collapsed, betrayed, fractured. The gates opened, slaughter followed. The Mongols took engineers, scribes, and artisans. Everyone else died, knee-shaped. A rebel prince killed a Mongol commander, Genghis' son-in-law. What followed was not war, it was riot. Every man, woman, and child was executed. Estimates say over 100,000 died. Their skulls were stacked in pyramids as walls. It's a message etched in blood. Defiance will not be forgotten. And it continued, city after city, wall after wall, crumbled, flattened, smoked out of history. The Mongols razed Baghdad, wiped out kingdoms in Persia, crushed the Kipchaks, broke into Kiev and Rus. Kiev stared down Europe. Each time, the same formula. Offer surrender, if refused. Total annihilation. The cost, historians estimate tens of millions died in the Mongol conquests, not over generations. In just a few decades, libraries lost, cities depopulated, rivers ran red. In China, Persia, Mesopotamia, entire cultures were left in ashes. Yet, in the ruins, an empire was forming. This wasn't just the end of cities, it was the end of eras. The torch of history passed through flame and came out smeared in soot, and in its smoke for the greatest conqueror the world had ever known. Law, trade, and tolerance, the empire beneath the iron. He burned cities, he shattered dynasties, he slaughtered kings and erased borders, and then he did something no one expected. He built. When the dust settled, Genghis Khan wasn't just a warlord, he became a ruler, over a land stretching from the Pacific Ocean to the Caspian Sea, and he knew swords could win land, but not loyalty. So he created something the ancient world had rarely seen. A system. The Yasa law of the steppe. Genghis Khan wrote a code of law called the Yasa, a strict but fair set of rules that applied to everyone from slaves to generals. Theft, executed; lying, flogged, or worse; religious discrimination, forbidden; kidnapping women, banned. He didn't rule by divine right or royal blood. He ruled by justice, speed, and fear, but also order. In a land of chaos, law became sacred. To Yan, an empire on horseback, Genghis Khan understood something the rest of the world missed. Information is power. He built the Yan, a mounted postal relay system spanning thousands of miles, with stations every 25 miles. Fresh horses, sealed messages, orders that crossed entire continents in days, not weeks. It was the nervous system of the empire, keeping generals connected, borders secure, rebellions crushed before they could rise. Trade across the world while Europe slept in feudalism. Genghis Khan reopened the Silk Road under Mongol protection. Trade flourished from Beijing to Baghdad, from Persia to Venice. Merchants were granted safe passage. Weights, coins, and customs were standardized. The Mongol Empire became a superhighway of commerce, carrying silks, spices, jewels, and even ideas. It was the first version of globalization. Religious tolerance, despite the destruction he caused. Genghis Khan was never a religious tyrant. He consulted Muslim doctors, respected Christian missionaries, listened to Buddhist monks, and even welcomed Taoist mystics to his court. His mother was a shamaness. His advisors were diverse. To him, belief was not a threat. Only rebellion was. I destroyed my enemies, he said, not because they worship different gods, but because they will not obey. The same man who massacred cities also protected widows, abolished aristocracy, and made diplomatic immunity sacred. He was a paradox, a killer who brought peace, a warlord who built law, a destroyer who created stability across a quarter of the earth. And through that order, the empire thrived. The shadow of the Khan. He needed no crown. He built no palace. He wrote no memoir. And yet, the world still speaks his name across deserts and mountains, in the ruins of cities, in the silence after war. His shadow remains. Genghis Khan. To some, a monster. To others, a maker of worlds. But above all, a force that could not be stopped. The winds of the steppe still blow. The horses still thunder in memory. And somewhere, beyond time, in the whispers of empire and dust, the Khan still rides. Have you already heard about this story? What other kind of stories are you interested to? You can comment it down below. Also, please kindly click like and subscribe. See you again next time, here in History, Behind and Beyond.